Why, hello and welcome everybody. Also, good morning. So today I wanted to show you guys what my legacy of, I think it's Phrecia event starter is going to be. Now, what you see here on the screen is going to look kind of crazy, and that is because this is actually a occultist righteous fire build I played 2.5 years ago or something. It was a long time ago. It was Legacy League. The reason I'm showcasing this clip is in the event, the Scavenger, which is the Scion, is what I plan on League starting, and it's a concept of basically this character I made a long time ago. Now, don't mind all this crazy gear you see here. The main thing you want to see here is Chaos skills, or sorry, right here, your Chaos damage can ignite. Now, the reasoning that this line is so important is because as an occultist, you have Profane Bloom, and Profane Bloom is a big Chaos pop. That Chaos pop now rolls the ability to ignite, thus creating a big ignite. If anyone's familiar with RF Chieftain, it's like having Hinekora, except it procs way more frequently, but does a lot less damage, right? So this is where the whole entire concept of my Scavenger Righteous Fire build is going to come from. I don't want to publish this as like a guide like my other RF characters because I don't know how it's going to feel 100%. I think it's going to feel really good, but you know, only time will really tell, especially in an event like this. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, over here is the Scavenger. So this is the Scion. Now, for people who are unaware, there are a whole bunch of new things here. And I will probably in the next week talk about why I'm not playing other versions, right? You've got like Daughter of Oshavi, Whisper, Wild Speaker. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Even a couple of them are pretty good for RF. But I think this by far is the most well-rounded, oriented on clear speed, and needs the least amount to get going compared to the other ascendancies. Remember, there's some big things to take into account when trying to create a Righteous Fire build from scratch, and some of the following things are like, is the build tanky enough to actually be melee? This is a big thing. RF doesn't do that much damage, so you need to be able to absorb damage. This is very important. Number two, how are you going to elevate your clear? Simply turning on RF is not usually enough if you want the juicy fast clear speed. Usually you need some form of explode. A lot of the time people can chase this as an endgame option like Legacy of Fury boots or, for example, Oriat's End, but it doesn't always feel good to play a league start build and then have to wait so long before you can get one of these big chase items, right? These are just some things to note. Now, as for Scavenger, let's talk about our order of what we're going to do things. So you have to run 2 of your first labs, right? So you start here and you get a passive point and a passive point, and then you can actually ascend in your cruel lab. So it is going to take a little bit to get going. Thankfully, we are used to playing Marauder Righteous Fire, and what I mean by that is as Marauder Righteous Fire, we actually don't get any damage notes at the start, right? We typically go like this. Actually, this is not even the right one. Hold on, don't mind that. Let me click that. There we go. As Marauder Righteous Fire, you start here and you have to go like this, and eventually you get to Arsonist. As a Scion, it's basically the same exact track. I think Marauder is 15 and Scion is 16, but you get life nodes on the way. So the leveling should not really be too much of a problem for me. It's going to be a little slow at the start and it'll pick up. So anyway, though, moving on to this, one of the first 2 you can pick is a Cloak of Flame, which quite literally gives you Cloak of Flame. It doesn't convert dots, but that's totally fine for us. I think I'm going to start with Blundelbore. And what Blundelbore does is it gives you a lesser Brutal Shrine and a lesser Massive Shrine with 40% increased effect. A lesser Massive Shrine is 20% AoE, 20% increased life, which gets rounded to what, 27, 28%? That is a pretty noticeable amount. Lesser Brutal Shrine is like 27, 28% increased damage. Not really that good, but this will probably jumpstart us to get some damage, area of effect, life scaling that we want. And then again, I probably will respec the Cloak of Flame because the physical mitigation is kind of crazy on Cloak of Flame. Now from here, you can either choose to go the top route. So remember, we went 1 point, 2 points, so that's normal lab. And then cruel lab is going to be one big node, and then either you go top or you go bottom. In this instance, we're going to go top, and I'll show you why. So now we're right here, so now we're going to ascend into Merc Lab. We get 1 point here, and now we can pick one of these. The one we're going to pick is absolutely Obliteration. Enemies you kill have a 30% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Now, 2 things here to note. Number 1, there is no conditional effect attached to this. It doesn't say something like cursed enemies. It just says enemies you kill, which means we have the ability to chain explode if we set this up correctly. Now, once you get this, you will immediately start noticing pops. 30% chance to explode is pretty frequent. You're going to see this every single pack. Since we're scaling AoE, it's naturally going to hit the whole pack. And even though we're not playing a chaos damage build, you ever picked up a Gloom Shrine in Path of Exile, you know, the big purple one, and you start hitting things and you hear the, you know, the, that's the Gloom Shrine. It decimates things. So I'm fairly confident that once we get this, we're just going to be blowing up packs, even though we're not scaling chaos. And here is the real kicker. When we get our Uber Lab, then we get to get Zerfi's Heart. Now, if you remember what I showed at the beginning with the Replica Volker, it's your chaos damage can ignite, right? So this is big for us. Now, if you've ever played the Hateful Accuser version of the RF Chieftain build, you'll know that this is pretty much how we're going to set it up. The goal for endgame should be, so at the beginning we're going to use Fire Trap like normal, but then endgame you're going to utilize the Hateful Accuser ring to trigger Penance Mark for Phantasms. Then you can explode the Phantasms to hit the boss. I believe the area of effect scaling on the Profane Bloom is the same as the Hinekora from what I read. Could be wrong there, because the Hinekora does look huge. But anyway, that's pretty much how the character hinges, right? We shield charge, Profane Bloom procs. The Profane Bloom has a big hit, which can create an ignite. Just like an RF Chieftain, you want to go ahead and make sure you're getting Ignite Proliferation. Whether you go into a Fan the Flames Cluster Jewel, or you decide to get it on a pair of gloves like these, this is going to be the most immediate boost to your clear speed. Then one of the next big things is actually achieving close to, if not 100% Ignite chance. Thankfully, because of our orientation on the tree, we have a whole bunch of Ignite passively. So for example, right over here, we've got Holy Dominion for 10% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. You get another 15% over here. You can take a 20% node over here. If you decide to come over here, you can grab extra ones, although I don't think it's necessary. You've got Settlers for runesmithing, so you can get an extra 15% on your weapon. And you can get the 60% fire damage with a 20% ignite chance on your weapon as well. So ignite's not going to be a problem. And we should actually be able to potentially apply shocks, because it's a 25% corpse health explode, and we have 15% chance here and 10% here. So we have 25% chance to apply a shock. One of the other cool things about this is we get to run Legacy of Fury in this version. The reason you get to run Legacy of Fury is since we're not playing a Chieftain, we actually get to go back to the old classic RF of scaling minus res. So that means Legacy of Fury has Scorch. You can scale Ailment Effect, right? You want to make sure you're grabbing Exposure, located right over here. You can scale the exposure with nodes, for example, like minimum exposure over here on Elemental Mastery. One of the other things I really want to check out is if you can overlap, and I think you could, the Legacy of Fury, which has an explode that can proc off the Phantasm, which should be able to hit the boss, and then also the actual explode of the Profane Bloom, creating an ignite, which should be separate from the burn, and then you have your actual Righteous Fire, which probably will only do like 5% of the damage compared to these, so that's a pretty cool thing. Now, as for the Scion Righteous Fire character, I will say that it's going to need some gear at the later stages of the build, as most things are. You can see here I do have some decent items. We've got like a really high life Shaper life gain on Block Shield. I've got a Mana Reservation helmet, nothing really too crazy here. The reason we're running a Mana Reservation efficiency is to fit all the auras. If you don't have something like this alongside an Enlighten, you're going to have to drop your Flesh and Stone, but again, not a big deal. It's something you can kind of gear your character into. I'm probably going to be running an Elder Helm until I get to this point where I can switch it over. Cloak of Flame as just a nice way to fix stuff. I may or may not switch to a Spell Suppression piece, since the nice thing about Scion is you actually have the ability to come over here through Magebane, grab Reflexes, grab the Mastery for 15% increased suppression if all of your gear has evasion. That would require us to craft like an actual suppression piece, but that's a nice option as you have some variety here. Most of the gear is going to look like standard RF gear, nothing too crazy. Remember, I don't have any like actual damage for you here, because the thing is, you would have to be able to figure out the damage of the Legacy of Fury explode alongside the Profane Bloom explode, so I'm not really sure how to set that up in PoB, but I've played a lot of builds like this, so that's why I'm naturally just going to jump in right away. Hateful Accuser is the ring I was referring to apply your penance mark, and then we've got Immortal Flesh. Now, jewels are a big part of Scion, and this is why I was talking about some aspects being expensive. you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you play a Scion, but you don't engage in the jewel setup. So one of the prime examples here is utilizing an unnatural instinct located here, and this will be very expensive. This is not going to be cheap at all. But again, you don't need this to start, right? You simply unplug the jewel, unplug this jewel, and go progress. What Unnatural Instinct does is it grants you all the area of effect here, along with the minor nodes inside this area, which overlaps here with the Light of Meaning. We did this in a previous league with RF Chieftain, where you grab a bunch of fire damage from all of these notables. All of the things that are overlapping in the Venn diagram are all giving 6% fire damage. So it ends up being like 120 or 150 fire. It's very, very good. But the rest of the tree is pretty straightforward. You can see it's very much like a standard RF tree. I was playing around and don't know which route I want to take. Windows taskbar is screwing me over here. I hate this thing. So down over here, I have like a test tree. And the only thing the test tree does is instead of going glancing blows, this has true block. So this one has like 68 block with, I can actually get 65 spell block. I just need shield breaker tattoos for this. But this is utilizing a versatile combatant true block build. So a little bit different. I want to experiment with different defensive layers and kind of see what feels really good. One of the other nice things about Scion is the AoE stacking if you're getting to use an Unnatural Instinct. So you get like the 36% AoE here, along with going into a deep cluster setup where you go Assert Dominance. So these two combined are 50% AoE. You don't have to worry about killing enemies recently because you will always be killing the Phantasms. So that will always trigger. And then the Towering Threats. These are expensive clusters, but you can just drop the Towering Threats, get the Assert Dominance, and then when you get the currency, you can go back into the Towering Threats, which is really nice. Now, if I take this and move this back over to my default here, if you look at my max Phys hit, the max Phys hit is 20,000 with this current setup. If I were to plug in a jewel, right, and this jewel is just to replicate what you're getting from the Ascendancy, you can see how crazy the max Phys hit jumps. You see that? That is for using the double Cloak of Flame. So that's tagging the jewel right here, Scavenger, for the 40% physical from hits taken as fire. Now this build is running 7.4k life. We can actually get higher, right? You can also, if you choose to not go Cloak of Flame, remember Blundellbore I was talking about at the beginning, you can scale your life even higher, but your physical mitigation will lack a little bit. But it really depends on what version you want to do, right? There's some flexibility here. The other thing to note is, remember, Scion is going to get 5 extra points. So even though it looks red on here, I myself level to 100 most leagues, so I'm not really concerned about that. This should be set for level 99 right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing for bandits, whether I'm helping Crane for speed, helping Alira for all res. Thing is you get a lot of all res as Scion anyway. So this is pretty much just what I wanted to kind of show you guys. I do have a backup plan in case things fail. And my backup plan is a Corrupting Cry. What is the Ascendancy called? I'm trying to remember here. It's the Ascendancy that, actually, let me just pop it up right here. Here we go. Ancestral Commander. Ancestral Commander is my backup character if the RF character doesn't work the way I want, but I think it'll be just fine. And the plan is Corrupting Cry because you can get Death Rattle for built-in Explode with Warcry cooldown recovery, so you can fix the issue. And then you get all the juicy survivability like a miniature Defiance of Destiny here. A lot of people will ask why I'm not running this for Righteous Fire, and that's because the damage on the character is going to feel abysmal until much later into the game, kind of like how you played a Jug before, except we don't have the flat gem scaling we used to, so the damage is going to be even worse than previous Juggernaut RF builds. And that's not this class's fault, that's just due to the lack of base damage on Righteous Fire. Anyway, that's pretty much what I've cooked up for the character. I'll be messing around a little bit more next week on Twitch, where we just be figuring out what we're doing. But for now, that's pretty much about it. I'll keep you guys updated with what I'm doing. So hope you guys had a wonderful time. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Hope you guys find something fun to play for the event. But anyway, that's about it from me. So thanks for watching, everyone. Remember, if you liked the video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget you can catch me streaming live every day at twitch.tv/Pohx. Take care. See you guys all tomorrow.